Have you ever hit a huge financial milestone and felt absolutely nothing? You thought six figures would change everything. Finally, you'd feel secure, confident, maybe even free. But instead, you're lying awake at 2 a.m., staring at your bank app, feeling the same quiet panic you did when you made half that. Yeah, I've been there too. I'm Nick, and I've spent years obsessing over one question. Why do people making $100,000 or more still feel broke? Why does finally making it still feel like you're running on a treadmill? Exhausted, anxious, and somehow stuck? Here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to talk about. Roughly half of Americans earning six figures live paycheck to paycheck. Not tight, not managing. I mean literally waiting for the next deposit to survive. They're one flat tire, one medical bill, one unexpected expense away from panic. Meanwhile, social media keeps lying to you, showing glossy lives, designer clothes, rooftop views. You think, man, if I made that much, I'd be set. But those people, they're drowning quietly, because behind every filtered photo is a bank account gasping for air. The problem isn't greed or stupidity, it's math. Taxes bleed you dry before you even touch your paycheck. Federal, state, local, Medicare, it's death by 1,000 deductions. That shiny $100,000 salary turns into maybe $60,000 after taxes, less if you live somewhere expensive. In New York City, that's the equivalent of around $30,000 after rent and basic living costs. Six figures look impressive on paper, until you realize most of it never actually reaches your pocket. Let's be brutally real for a second. A comfortable apartment in a safe area costs $2,500 to $3,500 a month. Health insurance, $500. Student loans, maybe $1,000. Childcare, another $2,000. Groceries, transportation, phone, utilities, it all stacks up. Before you know it, your $6K take-home pay is gone, and you haven't even started saving. That's why so many people earning what used to be a dream salary are secretly broke. They're not failing. The system is. Inflation has quietly stolen your purchasing power while you weren't looking. A $100,000 income today feels like $70,000 just a few years ago, and like $50,000 20 years ago. So you hit the milestone that was supposed to feel like freedom, and it feels like a trap. Because the truth is, most people aren't chasing wealth, they're chasing relief. And until you understand that, no number in your bank account will ever make you feel rich. Less financial stability than it ought to. And since inflation never ends, it just gets worse. Pay is never able to keep up with it. And all of a sudden, you still feel like you're behind the goalpost you hit. Well, there's a phenomenon known as lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep. And for high incomes, this is, quite honestly, the silent killer. This is how it operates. You're doing all right, earning $80,000. You're doing okay. You then think, great, now I can finally upgrade my lifestyle after receiving a raise to $100,000, resulting in a better apartment for you. Instead of driving your dependable used Honda, you rent a luxury vehicle. Since you've earned it, you begin to eat out more. All of your subscriptions are upgraded. You begin to take more costly trips. Additionally, each upgrade appears to be reasonable on its own. Okay, so now that you're earning six figures, none of these choices sound reckless at the time. You are worthy of good things, aren't you? Here's the issue, though. Those upgrades are permanent. It is quite difficult to revert to a lower standard of living once you have committed to it. That apartment rent of $3,000 per month becomes your starting point. The payments for your fancy car become your standard. The pricey eateries turn into your norm. All of a sudden, that lifestyle becomes the foundation of your mental budget. This implies that you simply upgrade everything again when you receive a raise rather than using the additional funds for investments or savings. You obtain an even better automobile. You move into a $4,000 apartment and you start traveling to Europe instead of just taking weekend road trips. Before you realize it's there, the extra cash vanishes into an ever-increasing lifestyle. Furthermore, this is by no means a personal shortcoming or character defect. Our bodies are designed to do this. We desire to preserve or raise our position in relation to those around us. Therefore, we compare ourselves to them. We are essentially motivated by social comparison, according to research. Naturally, you want to spend more money to match your increased income in order to project a sense of prestige. This is made much worse by social media, as you're no longer only comparing yourself to your neighbors. You're evaluating yourself against everyone on the planet. You think, well, I make $100,000, so I should be able to do that too, when you see folks who drive fancy cars, travel, and appear to have it all figured out. However, you aren't aware of their family finances, college loans, or the fact that they are incurring debt in order to support that way of life. You think you're failing since you're not doing that after simply looking at the Instagram pictures. In order to stay up, you begin to improve your lifestyle, and before you realize it, you've eliminated any financial benefit from earning more money. There is constant pressure to consume and flaunt your affluence via the possessions and experiences you have. And the majority of people aren't even aware of it until they sit down and realize they're earning six figures but have nothing to show for it. They keep doing it. Well, even though their salary appears outstanding on paper, a lot of high earners fall into this trap, which keeps them trapped in that paycheck-to-paycheck attitude. Then comes housing, which is arguably the main factor causing six-figure incomes to feel less wealthy. In this nation, the median price of a home is more than $415,000. That is absurd, roughly 5 times the typical household income. In the past, homes were expected to cost roughly 3 times your yearly income, but that has radically changed. It's much more absurd in affluent cities. For example, the median property price in San Francisco is more over $200,000. The cost of Los Angeles is $682,000. The cost of New York exceeds $500,000. DC has a population of over 500,000. Additionally, you simply cannot afford to buy a home in any of these cities if you make $100,000 annually. The math simply isn't sound. For a normal 30-year mortgage, the annual income required to cover the mortgage, taxes, and insurance on a median price property must now be at least $126,700. And that's assuming you can come up with a 3.5% down payment. You must earn much more than that if you're purchasing in a pricey location, because they believe they would be able to purchase a home by the time they reach six figures. High earners who make $100,000 feel as though they cannot afford to do so. This is a peculiar psychological experience. Rather, they're constantly in a state of being close, but never quite there. Furthermore, housing expenses have risen to such an extent that they are far above the conventional recommendation of 28 to 36% of income made by financial advisors. Approximately 45% of median household income is currently spent on the median cost of property ownership, which is totally unsustainable. This explains why younger generations are experiencing such a mental health crisis as a result of home ownership. They're completely being priced out. Nowadays, 40 is the average age of a first-time house buyer. 40, that was the age at which people were considering moving up to a second or third residence. Additionally, this is the moment when people are newly joining the market. That disparity between the desire to own a home and the fact that one cannot afford it is psychologically catastrophic for someone earning $100,000 a year. You completed everything correctly. You received the instruction. Even though you have a well-paying work, you're nevertheless unable to perform tasks that were relatively simple for earlier generations. That is truly disheartening and contributes to the perception that even though you earn six figures, you aren't truly succeeding. Another significant contributing factor is student loan debt, particularly for professionals earning six figures. Physicians, attorneys, dentists, financial advisors, and highly qualified engineers. These individuals made a lot of money, but they frequently incurred significant debt from school loans in order to achieve their success. Although the national average for student loan debt is about $40,000, six-figure earners typically have debts closer to $80,000 since they attended graduate school. And it is only the mean. There are those who have far more. Dennis's average debt upon graduation was approximately $313,000. The average lawyer makes about $130,000. Individuals with doctorates in a variety of professions Master's degrees in engineering and master's degrees in business administration occasionally begin their lucrative careers with student loans ranging from $100,000 to $300,000. Therefore, despite earning six figures, they are still paying $2,000, $1,500, and $1,000 a month in loan installments. That is money that isn't used for investments, housing savings, or anything else. It simply covers the cost of the education that initially led to their six-figure position. And this is causing a lot of stress. Almost 80% of those with student loan debts, ranging from $130,000 to $139,000, say they are under a lot of stress. These individuals are earning a wonderful living, but they are unable to enjoy it because they are so stressed out about their debt. A 30-year-old New York investor who earns over $105,000 annually told me that his school loan debt consumes so much of his income that it makes him feel as though he is paying the government a second rent. Despite earning six figures, he feels as like he is barely making ends meet. For millions of highly educated professionals, this is their reality. On paper, they make a lot of money, but student loans suck up their take-home pay, which leads to a strange disconnect where they should feel wealthy but are stuck. The geographic nightmare comes next. The value of $100,000 varies greatly based on where you reside. A person in Cincinnati earning $100,000 is in a very different financial universe than someone in New York or San Francisco earning $100,000. A 3-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house with a large backyard could be rented in Cincinnati for $1,800 per month. In Santa Monica, a 450-square-foot studio costs $1,650. In Cincinnati, that same $100,000 goes roughly 3 times as far. Here's the issue, though. Because the jobs are in expensive cities, many high earners reside there. San Francisco and Seattle are home to the majority of the tech sector. Chicago and New York are the centers of finance. Los Angeles is the center of entertainment. Los Angeles, Miami, and New York have the highest concentrations of real estate. Therefore, your $100,000 feels far less spectacular than it would in less costly locations because if you're successful in these sectors, you're most likely living in one of these pricey cities. Additionally, there aren't any tech jobs in Cincinnati, so you can't just move there and get one. You're somewhat caught between wanting to go where the money is and the fact that where you are, the money doesn't really cover your expenses. Due to remote work consolidation and the fact that everyone discovered the same strategy at the same time, the geographic arbitrage that once allowed you to earn a high wage and live somewhere inexpensive has become much more difficult. People are moving to less expensive places, yet their earnings are being reduced because remote employment markets have adjusted to the cost of living in those areas. This is an odd situation. The game is losing. The psychology of not feeling wealthy despite having six figures is closely related to aspiration and comparison. Up until you start interacting with people who earn $200,000, $500,000, or $1 million annually, $100,000 seems like a lot of money. All of a sudden, you're in rooms with individuals discussing company investments and vacation house purchases, and all you're doing is attempting to figure out how to make ends meet in your existing residence. There is this hedonic treadmill in which your wealth benchmark continues rising. According to Americans, in order to feel wealthy, one would need to earn an average of $520,000 annually. That's 5 times 6 figures. Take a moment to consider that. Individuals earning less than $50,000 stated that they would want $157,000 in order to be comfortable. However, those earning $100,000 stated they would require $246,000. You believe you need greater security the more you earn. This is confirmed to be true, and it clarifies why. Why so many individuals who are successful feel like failures. The goalposts instantly shifted when you reach your objective. You believed that $100,000 would be the magic figure, but now it merely seems like the starting point for a comfortable life. No matter how much money you produce, the gap between what you make and what you believe you need keeps widening. It is like to a game in which the finish line gets farther away each time you approach it. Additionally, there's the fact that a H100,000 may buy you a certain lifestyle. It's not wealthy. If you're smart about it, it's middle class and comfortable, but not wealthy. Wealthy folks don't worry about losing their jobs. Unexpected auto repairs and medical expenses are not a concern for wealthy people. Wealthy folks don't worry about whether they need to check their bank account before making a purchase or if they can afford to eat out. You're not wealthy if you earn H100,000, and like the majority of people, you still worry about such things. You're upper middle class and wanting to feel successful, but no matter how much money you make, the fear of money follows you around. For six-figure earners, this is the true source of their frustration. They've reached a significant milestone that should feel transformative, but instead, they're experiencing the same level of financial concern as they did when they were earning $60,000 or $70,000. The mood remained the same, but the number did. The absurd thing is that, even with a six-figure salary, you could definitely accumulate significant wealth if you put in the effort to maintain discipline, fight lifestyle inflation, invest regularly, and live below your means. If you follow the calculations, they work. However, the pressure to improve your lifestyle, the culture of comparison, inflation that reduces your purchasing power, the high cost of housing and education, taxes that take up 40% of your salary, student debt, and the geographic realities of where jobs are located. Six figures feel like they're barely making ends meet because of all of this. And the true tragedy is that, even though you reach the objective, it didn't seem like a victory. Rather, you feel as though you're running faster, but not making any progress. To be honest, the majority of six-figure earners never really deal with this on a psychological level. They simply accept that even though they make $100,000, they must earn more, which puts them in a never-ending cycle of attempting to increase their income in the hopes that one day they would hit a threshold that feels sufficient. However, no number will ever feel sufficient if you ignore the psychological comparison games and lifestyle inflation. You will constantly feel as though you need more money if you haven't addressed the underlying psychology surrounding money, regardless of how much you make, $100,000, $200,000, or $500,000. This explains why some people who earn $100,000 feel wealthy, while others are impoverished. Actually, it has nothing to do with the money. It has to do with decisions, psychology, and understanding where money is going. Those who have paid off their debts or are managing them strategically, who understand their geographic advantage or disadvantage, who actively resist lifestyle inflation, who don't compare themselves to everyone else on social media, and who know what their money is doing and where it's going are the ones who feel wealthy. Think their wealth is based on their spending rather than their income, which is why they feel wealthy. Additionally, that distinction alters their entire financial life experience.